Right now, China has the entire American war machine by the throat. 90% of the rare earth metals that go into F-35 fighters, Tomahawk cruise missiles, Javelin anti-tank systems, and the guidance chips in every smart bomb America drops, all of it flows through Chinese processing facilities. Welcome to Economic Empires. Greenland. This is the periodic table that can make America completely independent from its enemies. Beneath this ice lies the solution to many of the problems of the very near future, which I will share today. And Trump is willing to pay any price for it. And Denmark will have to make a choice. You've been looking at the map wrong your whole life. On a flat map, Greenland is just an icy wasteland on the outskirts. But look from the north. It's the center of the world. It's the gateway for Russia's nuclear fleet and China's Polar Silk Road. Whoever controls Greenland puts a checkpoint on the main highway of the future. From there, the world looks very different. Russia, Canada, the United States, Norway, and Greenland, they're all neighbors now. They all share the same ocean, the same shipping lanes, the same strategic choke points. This is what Pentagon planners call the polar view. And in this view, Greenland isn't remote, it's central. It controls access to the Atlantic for any Russian submarine leaving the Northern Fleet. It dominates the flight paths for intercontinental ballistic missiles traveling between Moscow and New York. And it sits astride what may become the most valuable shipping route of the 21st century, the Northwest Passage. Remember when everyone laughed at Trump in 2019 for suggesting America buy Greenland? The Danish Prime Minister called it absurd. Late-night hosts made jokes. The internet erupted in memes. Nobody's laughing now, especially after the situation in Venezuela. Because what looked like the random impulse of a real estate developer was actually the first public hint of a strategy that's been developing in American security circles for over a decade, a strategy with a name that's now circulating in classified briefings across Washington: Fortress America. In 2010, when Japan had a diplomatic dispute with Beijing over the Senkaku Islands, China simply turned off the tap. Rare earth exports to Japan dropped by 40% overnight. Tokyo folded within weeks. Now imagine that leverage aimed at Washington. But beneath 2 million square kilometers of ice lies a solution to America's most dangerous vulnerability: Greenland, the world's largest island. Population, 56,000. And according to the U.S. Geological Survey, home to one of the planet's most significant untapped deposits of neodymium, dysprosium, and 17 other elements that make modern warfare possible. Donald Trump wants this, and in 2026, he's willing to pay any price to get it. I've spent 10 years analyzing resource wars, great power competition, and the geopolitics of extraction. What I'm about to show you isn't speculation. It's the documented strategy of a superpower preparing for a new kind of conflict, one fought not just with missiles, but with supply chains. Let me show you the 17 elements that could determine who wins the next great power war. Neodymium. Without it, you can't build the permanent magnets that power precision-guided munitions. Every Hellfire missile, every JDAM bomb, every targeting system in the U.S. arsenal. Dysprosium, critical for the magnets in electric vehicle motors and in the F-35's flight control systems. Terbium, used in solid-state electronics, including military communications equipment. Here's the reality that no American president wants to admit publicly. China doesn't just mine these elements. They've spent 3 decades building an absolute monopoly over the entire processing chain, from ore to oxide to metal to magnet. Beijing controls it all. In 2023, China processed 90% of the world's rare earths, not because they have the only deposits, but because they made a strategic decision in the 1990s, while America was distracted by the end of history fantasy, to dominate this sector at any cost. They subsidized production, tolerated environmental devastation, and systematically undercut any competitor until they owned the market. Deng Xiaoping said it in 1992. The Middle East has oil. China has rare earths. Now look at Greenland. The Kvanefjeld project in southern Greenland contains an estimated 619 million tons of ore. That's enough rare earth oxide to supply global demand for 150 years. The Kringlerne deposit nearby holds the world's largest known accumulation of neodymium and dysprosium. These aren't speculative estimates. This is verified geological data from Australian, Canadian, and American surveys. The minerals are there. They've always been there. What's changed is that climate change is making them accessible, and great power competition is making them essential. China knows this too. In 2016, a Chinese state-owned company tried to buy an abandoned Danish naval base in Greenland. Blocked. In 2018, Beijing offered to build 3 international airports on the island. Blocked after intense pressure from Washington. In 2019, a Chinese mining consortium sought majority control of the Kvanefjeld project. The Danish intelligence service intervened. Trump said it himself, if we don't do it, Russia or China will. This isn't paranoia. This is accurate threat assessment. And it explains why Trump has moved from let's buy Greenland to we're taking Greenland one way or another. The rare earth calculus is simple. Whoever controls Greenland's deposits can break China's monopoly. Not in 20 years, not in 10. In the time it takes to build processing facilities, 3 to 5 years with wartime urgency. That's not a trade deal. That's a strategic realignment of global power. Let's talk about what keeps NATO Supreme Allied Commander awake at night. The GIUK Gap. Greenland, Iceland, United Kingdom. It's a naval choke point that's controlled Atlantic warfare since World War II. Any Russian submarine heading from the Northern Fleet to threaten American or European coastlines must pass through this gap. During the Cold War, the United States invested billions in sonar arrays, patrol aircraft, and submarine hunter killers specifically to monitor this gap. The Soviet Navy knew that breaking through GIUK was the first step in any war with NATO. That infrastructure has degraded since 1991, but the geography hasn't changed, and Russia's submarine capabilities have evolved dramatically. The Yasin-class nuclear attack submarine carries Caliber cruise missiles with a range of 2,500 kilometers. Russia has deployed at least 8 of them to the Northern Fleet. More concerning, the Status 6 Poseidon, an autonomous nuclear-armed torpedo designed to detonate near coastal cities and generate radioactive tsunamis. These weapons are specifically designed to bypass American missile defense, and they all must transit through or near the GIUK Gap to reach their targets. The United States already operates Pituffik Space Base, formerly Thule Air Base, in northwest Greenland. It hosts early warning radars, satellite tracking systems, and serves as a potential forward operating location for interceptor aircraft. But Thule alone isn't enough. It covers the northern approaches. What about the southern route through the Denmark Strait? If America controlled Greenland outright or had unrestricted military access, It could establish a complete sensor network across the entire GIUK barrier. Anti-submarine warfare aircraft at Kangerlussuaq, underwater sonar arrays from Nuuk to the Davis Strait, a tripwire that would make any Russian submarine transit a suicide mission. Trump's advisors understand this. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has emphasized Arctic dominance as a priority. The recently announced $6 billion Danish investment in F-35s and P-8 Poseidon aircraft for Greenland, that came directly from American pressure, a down payment on the defense commitment Washington is demanding. But there's a strategic irony here that most analysts miss. The United States already has everything it needs in Greenland. The 1951 defense agreement with Denmark allows American forces to build facilities, conduct operations, and expand presence essentially without restriction. Denmark has never refused a U.S. military request regarding Greenland. So why does Trump want sovereignty? Two reasons. First, speed. Negotiating new facilities takes years. Ownership means acting immediately, critical if a Taiwan crisis or European war suddenly made Arctic dominance urgent. Second, permanence. Agreements can be revoked. Territory is forever. Trump isn't planning for the next administration. He's planning for the next century. Here's where I need you to think like a strategist, not a moralist. On January 3, 2026, U.S. forces seized Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in a lightning operation. He's now in a New York detention facility facing drug trafficking charges. The Venezuelan military, still in power but now operating under American direction, has begun renegotiating oil contracts with U.S. companies. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, 300 billion barrels. Under Maduro, those reserves flowed to China, which had extended over $60 billion in loans to Caracas. Russian state oil company Rosneft held significant stakes in Venezuelan production. Iran supplied technicians and equipment during sanctions periods. Trump didn't remove Maduro to restore democracy. He removed Maduro to redirect the oil flow. In June 2025, Trump ordered strikes on Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities. In January 2026, as protests spread across Iranian cities, he publicly floated military intervention to support regime change. Iran holds the world's fourth largest oil reserves and second largest natural gas reserves. Under the current regime, those resources flow primarily to China, which imports over 1 million barrels of Iranian oil daily, despite sanctions. Now connect the dots. China's strategic vulnerability isn't military, it's energy. The People's Republic imports over 70% of its oil, much of it from countries that America can pressure, sanction, or, as we've now seen, directly attack. If the United States controls Greenland's rare earths, it breaks China's mineral leverage. If the United States controls Venezuelan oil, it breaks one of China's energy lifelines. If the United States destabilizes or changes the Iranian regime, it breaks another. This is Fortress America, not isolation, domination. A strategic posture where the United States controls enough critical resources domestically or in vassal states that it becomes invulnerable to economic coercion while retaining the ability to economically strangle any adversary. The term strategists use is autarky, economic self-sufficiency. It's what Nazi Germany tried and failed to achieve in the 1930s. It's what the Soviet Union maintained through sheer geographic scale. And it's what Donald Trump is attempting to construct through a combination of territorial acquisition, regime change, and resource control. The January 2026 announcement of the Trump Corollary made this explicit. Any activity by extra-hemispheric powers China, Russia, or their allies in the Western Hemisphere is now considered a threat to U.S. security, requiring response. The Western Hemisphere extends to Greenland. This isn't the Donroe Doctrine of 1823. This is something more ambitious. It's an attempt to create an American sphere of absolute dominance, stretching from Alaska to Greenland, from Canada to Argentina. A resource base so comprehensive that Washington can wage economic war indefinitely without fear of retaliation. So how does America actually get Greenland? Let me walk you through the scenarios being discussed in both Washington and Copenhagen. Option 1, the 99-year lease. Not a purchase, a long-term arrangement similar to Britain's tenure in Hong Kong. The United States would pay Denmark an annual fee. Estimated proposals range from $10 to $50 billion annually, in exchange for complete administrative control. Greenland's 56,000 residents would retain Danish citizenship, but American law and military jurisdiction would prevail. The advantage? Denmark avoids the political catastrophe of selling territory. The disadvantage? It's a fig leaf, and everyone knows it. Option 2, independence followed by association. Greenland has been trending toward independence for decades. A 2025 poll showed 67% support for eventual sovereignty. What if Trump simply accelerated that process? The mechanism. Denmark allows a binding independence referendum. Greenland becomes a sovereign nation. Immediately after, the new Greenlandic government signs a compact of free association with the United States, similar to arrangements with Palau, the Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia. Under such a compact, Greenland would control internal affairs while the United States handles defense, foreign policy, and, crucially, resource extraction agreements. This is the elegant solution. Greenlanders get independence. Denmark avoids humiliation. America gets everything it wants. The problem? Greenlanders might not want American dominance any more than Danish oversight. Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen stated bluntly, "We don't want to be Americans, we want to be Greenlanders." Option 3, the fait accompli. This is the scenario that terrifies European planners. Trump announces an imminent threat to Greenland, perhaps citing Chinese mining interest or Russian naval activity. American forces deploy to protect critical infrastructure. Within days, boots are on the ground at Kangerlussuaq, Nuuk, and Thule. Denmark faces an impossible choice: fight its own NATO ally or accept a reality it cannot change. European allies have made clear this would end NATO. French President Macron stated that military action against Danish territory is unthinkable and would nullify Article 5 protections. German President Steinmeier warned of a world order degenerating into a den of robbers. Trump's response has been equally clear. America needs NATO less than NATO needs America. Here's what I need you to understand about why this matters beyond Greenland. When the United States seizes a foreign head of state and openly contemplates annexing allied territory, it doesn't happen in isolation. It sends a signal to every other power watching. Putin looks at Venezuela and thinks, America just did what I did in Crimea, took what it wanted and dared the world to respond. If Washington can justify intervention through spheres of influence, so can Moscow. The war in Ukraine isn't an aberration, it's the new normal. Xi looks at Greenland and thinks, if territory can be taken from NATO allies without consequence, what stops us in Taiwan? The United States just demonstrated that the rules apply only to the weak. Former Putin advisor Sergei Markov said it explicitly. There is basically no international law, only the law of force. Russia has known that for a long time. The post-1945 international order. imperfect as it was, rested on a single premise: great powers don't redraw borders by force. The United States was supposed to be that order's guarantor. Now, the guarantor is the biggest threat. The Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the global average. Sea routes that were impassable for millennia will be open year-round within decades. Resources locked under ice for millions of years are becoming accessible. Whoever controls the Arctic controls the 21st century. That's not hyperbole, that's geography, that's geology, that's the cold logic of great power competition stripped of moral pretense. Donald Trump sees this clearly. His methods are brutal, his rhetoric is inflammatory, and his disregard for alliance politics is destabilizing. But the underlying calculation that Greenland is the capstone of American strategic dominance for the next 100 years is shared by planners across the political spectrum. The question isn't whether America should want Greenland. The question is what America and the world is willing to sacrifice to get it. The Middle East has oil. China has rare earths. America will have Greenland. That's the lesson of 2026. If you want to understand where the global economy is actually heading, not the headlines, not the noise, subscribe to Economic Empires.